A very good afternoon to all our viewers, and welcome to Wild Earth, live at the watering hole. A good afternoon from all of us here at Wild Earth. And we're starting off at Tembe this afternoon with a windswept grey heron amongst the reeds. It looks a little bit unsettled, but I'm pretty sure he's taking advantage of this situation to see whatever gets flushed there. Now, I'll be your host this afternoon. I'm Japie Potgieter, and I'm very, very excited to see what the afternoon has to hold. You can see this heron staring into the reeds in and amongst. There we go. Let's see, maybe might have spotted something there. Well, these birds are very, very adaptable, and they tend to go after anything they can get, actually. Little fish, frogs, insects, even smaller birds. And of course, they've got extremely keen eyesight, with a narrow, very sharp bill going straight down. You can see all the way down the bill. And of course, that enables them to strike with pinpoint accuracy should they target something. Fuzzy Dunlop, happy Sunday fun day to you too. Thank you so much. I'm sure it's going to be an amazingly fun Sunday this. I had yesterday was quite an interesting, quite a busy afternoon. And thoroughly enjoyable. So what I did yesterday afternoon after the watering hole show, I went and did a bit of research. I had a question yesterday that I actually missed. A question by Sandy Franklin from Tennessee, US, and she asked about the white stuff in the corner of the elephant's eyes. And I think since we are at Tembe Elephant Park, I might as well talk a little bit about it, because it was quite an interesting topic. It was not as clear cut and not as easily answerable as I would have thought initially. So I did a bit of digging. Turns out it's quite a bit of a wormhole actually to go into, and I came up with not too much, to be honest. It doesn't seem like there's too much literature or scientific literature on it. And what I've gathered is that it looks like, from most accounts, it is a combination of a few things, which is basically the tear film, which is a type of mucousy layer and water that covers the elephant's eye. And the elephants, unlike a lot of other mammals, the elephants and their relatives, they lack the normal glands and the normal tear duct system like other mammals have. So they essentially use their third eyelid or nictitating membrane to kind of clear their eye. And they've adapted a little bit of a different system. They've actually got these reappropriated glands in and around the eye, one positioned on the actual third eyelid. It secretes these watery layers. And when they blink their eyes, they involuntarily clear the eye of whatever debris, bacteria, whatever might be in the eyes. So, yeah, so it's commonly accepted currently that it is just a gathering of that mucousy layer and the tear film in the corner of the eyes, actually. So yeah, the correct makeup of that is of a material called sebum and in the mucus from the tear film itself. But what I also found quite interesting about this is that it's the same with manatees and hyraxes, or the daci that we saw yesterday afternoon, the relatives of the elephant. And this adaptation was most likely, well, it's thought that it most likely happened because elephants had a semi-aquatic past and their ancestors didn't have to constantly clear and protect the eye since they spend a lot of time in water or wet habitats. Ari, good afternoon, and thank you for your greetings from the Netherlands. I hope it's going very well there this afternoon, and I hope you're having a beautiful day that side. Now this heron's moved. This heron's moved a little bit closer to the reeds, but not too much happening. So I think we're gonna head over to Victoria Falls watering hole, and then we'll see what's happening there. And here we have some very busy warthogs. One with quite a hairdo there at the back. Judging from their casual behavior, I'm taking it's quite a relaxed scene around this watering hole currently. So I've been told that there was a few vultures here not too long ago, literally just a few moments ago, and they've taken off, and they were actually looking and digging in a similar area to where these warthogs are now. So it's quite interesting. I'm wondering, I can see, there we go. That's a guinea fowl coming in. Now, I'm wondering if it is in the same spot, exactly the same where the vultures were. Warthogs are obviously digging for something there that's got all of their interests. As we move out, we can see there's a couple of other birds around. Looks like a marabou stork. I can see some guinea fowl, looks like a yellow-billed stork, and some hardy-da. Oh, what a dry landscape this is, time of the year in northwestern Zimbabwe. You can see, there we go, there's some vultures circling. Still quite a bit of water around here, so this is a very, very productive area. They're still flying quite low, so definitely testament to the fact that they've just taken off. There's a couple sitting on the tallest tree in the distance. The association of vultures with dead things is something that it's quite a common association. Part of their ecological role is to make sure that they clean up whatever's left of animals that pass away. So they basically leave nothing behind. That way they play a valuable role in keeping the environment clear of disease and bacteria and other things. So very, very specialized birds. But a big part of flying high, it's such a massive bird, and they can reach incredibly high altitudes with the help of warm air currents rising. They've got excellent eyesight. And the African vultures, or old world vultures as they're effectively known, they find their prey through the use of their sense of sight. So they've got excellent sight, and they can spot something from all the way up there. And the remarkable thing is, if they're not sure, then they can just drop a little bit lower and come and investigate. And we often find that they, for that very reason, when they do spot predators in an area, they might just take a dip and see what's happening. Here we have a very interesting looking marabou stork. To me, they always look a little bit confused, but these birds are ultimate opportunists. And they might look quite odd, but they're extremely sharp and robust bill, along with their massive size, makes them a terrifying bird, actually. Good scavengers. You can see this bird's legs look quite pale. They have an interesting way of keeping themselves cool, and it looks like it's a hot day here at Vic Falls, and I'm pretty sure that bird, in part to kind of use it in a way, kind of like a sunscreen to protect itself from the ambient sun rays and the ambient heat. They defecate on their legs. It also helps to regulate their temperature. And there's another very interesting looking bird on the water's edge there. The master itself. This is a hooded vulture, and a fascinating bird. Bird that's numbers have declined quite a lot recent years. But this is a very, very sharp bird. In fact, so much so, in the areas that they do occur in large numbers, they are often a very sure indication that there might be something that's passed away or a decaying animal nearby. They fly quite low, they've got very, very keen eyesight, and they're often some of the first birds around a carcass. And they'll also actively follow creatures like lion, hyena, even, and wild dog. Cobra. Do vultures rely on their sense of smell to track carcasses? The African vultures, they mainly use their eyesight. You can see, now we can see the one that's just come in has got a red or pink flushed face, and there's the much larger white-backed vulture that's just come in, and then another young hooded vulture. You can see has got a bit of a hood with a darker neck down. But yes, so the African vultures, or the old world vultures as they're effectively called, they use a combination of flight and then their sense of eyesight, and they can spot things from incredibly far away. Joy, you're asking about breeding programs in South Africa that can help boost numbers. There are indeed. The idea is, with conservation, is also in a big way to try and establish the right conditions for them to breed. Vultures are very difficult to raise in captivity. To properly recreate the conditions and to actually be able to provide them with the right nutrition that they need in order to grow strong. But it's these programs are more focused on animals in need, so animals that need rehabilitation. So the programs generally focus on preserving habitat and protecting certain areas that is considered important breeding habitats. Like, for instance, both of these species of vultures we're seeing now, they nest in trees. And the whiteback vulture especially, the whiteback vulture being a very large bird, tends to nest right on top of big tall trees, near big rivers often. Sometimes out in the open where there's a suitable tree, but it's generally near water. And in the hooded vulture tends to nest a little bit more inside the tree's canopy, but also a tree nester. So big trees is essential to their habitat for breeding. And of course, then also if there's a decent amount of predators around, then you find that that will provide them with food. But what often happens is they tend to be concentrated in large protected areas. And outside they don't do as well due to various reasons: power lines, potential poisonings. So the breeding programs in South Africa tend to focus on preserving certain habitat and conditions and looking into the driving factors of what constitutes the optimal breeding conditions for them. But there are certain breeding programs, certain areas. What a fascinating scene. You can see these big marabou stalks here in the foreground. 3 vultures and then a whole group of warthogs in the back. It looks like it was quite a successful season for those warthogs. You can see quite a few young ones there. And you can tell the young ones from the older ones with the clearly evident white whiskers. And as some might argue, they resemble the tusks of the older ones, and at a distance maybe provide a bit of a deterrent for any predators. I think it's certainly a valid point. However, I guess a predator like a lion don't necessarily think about the size of the tusks when it goes after the warthog. They're very capable of inflicting some serious damage, though. You can see they've got very, very thick, strong necks, and they use those tusks to aid them in their feeding. But also, the bottom incisors are usually worn down by the top ones, fitting snugly in them. So they're very, very sharp, and they can deliver a lethal stab or cut. Harriet Hodgson. Very happy to hear that Cape Town is sunny. I didn't actually know that. I know that the Cape's been having quite a bit of raining weather. I'm pretty sure for those of you down in Cape Town. It must have been quite a cold period that's passed, so I'm very happy to hear that there's some sun. Catherine, I see you say that it's so relaxing to watch vultures in the sky. It can be. I love watching the vultures up in the sky, like not just for the reason of looking out for something potential, but it's always just interesting to know that it's an indication to me that there's always something happening somewhere. It's just an indication or a sign, an aerial sign that we can follow. It kind of points to us the natural processes of life and death happening out in the bush every day. And we're not the only ones, not just humans that watch the vultures. Predators watch vultures. Hyena, I've often watched hyena looking up in the sky, following vultures where they see vultures going down. Lion, especially young male lions, spending some time on their own, they tend to scavenge quite a lot, and they might follow those vultures to go and see what's happening or where they're going. Now this is quite an interesting scene. We can see these marabous drinking water. It looks a little ineffective, to be honest. I imagine that they can scoop up too much water. You can see the vultures also sitting with their wings a little bit open. During the heat of the day, you might find quite a lot of vultures coming down near watering holes where they come and bathe and cleanse themselves, and then they'll sit out in the sun with their wings open for a little bit, not just to dry it off, but also to burn off parasites. What an incredible bird. What a big bird. And some of these birds can weigh more than 5 kilograms. That's why you need those big wings. Get themselves lifted. Catherine, that sounds very exciting. You're going to go visit the Bearded Vulture Conservation Project tomorrow in Drakensberg, I'm assuming. I really hope you do get to see some. I'm sure you will. There's a good chance. I mean, being wild animals, we don't always have the surety that we might get to see something, but I think there's a good chance. What an amazing bird. Always a very, very special creature to look out for when traveling through Natal and certain parts of the Eastern Cape. What an unbelievable bird. And unlike these vultures in the bushveld, they are cliff nesters. Here we go, there's a vulture taking off. What an elaborate display of strength and and powerful flight. This needs quite a bit of a run up. And a nice big impala ram. Decent set of horns on him. You can see him kicking his leg every now and again, probably to readjust his grip. Looks like it's quite a muddy edge there in the water, so ensure that he's got a stable footing to drink. He's just readjusting. Interesting to see him on his own. Here we have the hardy-da. Also quite an interesting bird. Nowadays quite a common bird. A nice size reference there with a helmeted guinea fowl in the front. There we go, there's more impala there in the back. And a crocodile. There we go. I was wondering about that when that impala was having a drink earlier. I think this croc has spent enough time in the water now. It's going out to bask a bit and warm up. Yeah, it's amazing. Just disappearing behind those rocks there. By the looks of it, it looks like there's a little bit of like a trough built there, so maybe just lifted itself in and up into that trough, probably from an old point where water was pumped from. Oh, certainly made the yellow-billed stork move off. You can see the impalas aren't too bothered. Looks like there's a bit of water flowing there. Amazing always to see. Even trees that lose their leaves this time of the year, when they're near water, sometimes they retain them for longer like this. And there's some beautiful kudu. I think we've had some good action around here, but I think we're gonna head over to Juma, where I heard we might have some elephants. Amazing. A herd of elephants. Oh, okay. I had a brief view there of some zebra and eland at Aldonio. Looks very, very busy there as well, but what an amazing sight. Decent sized herd of elephants. And funnily enough, not something I've seen a lot of over the Africam around our watering holes lately. You can see some playful little ones. You can see a younger bull there at the back. And hear him. How amazing. I love those sounds the elephants make. Those low rumbles. Just always informing the others of the presence of something. You can see this young elephant is clearly not in the mood to share. You can see the impalas aren't too bothered. Of course, they move out of the way. They know it's a larger animal, so you have to give them the right of way. But it's always fun to watch the little ones take out their frustrations and getting to terms with their size and position within the system. It's interesting elephant behavior, much like our own. A lot of it is, it's almost culture, it's learned behavior. We're watching the mother and then applying it. And for a young elephant at that age, this little elephant probably watched his mom chasing something, or one of the older siblings, and then started doing it around the watering holes with the blacksmith lapwings, maybe a guinea fowl here and there. And he's moved all the way up to impala. This is the part that I find interesting. It's usually when the elephants move away from the water and they start to split into the mother and offspring groups. That's when the young move towards their mother or towards their older sibling. It's usually this moment that might seem quite confusing to us when we look at them, but it's actually just a moment where they're making sure that everybody's catching up. And they have that unseen communication going, making sure that all the members of the herd had something to drink. And good to see that the mother and calf on the far left, she's taken a little one into the shade. But as these elephants are heading off, I'm pretty sure they're gonna not move too far from this area. In the meantime, I think we're gonna head over to Founders, where we've got some rhino. What a sight. What a sight. Looks like there is even a third one coming over on the back left. Whole scene of two rhinos drinking. They're quite in tune with each other's movements. Looks like a much larger and a smaller one. My first guess would be possibly mother and offspring. Not too sure. If it wasn't for the nostrils and the muscles on the side of the face and the cheeks moving, sipping up the water, it looks like they're standing dead still. Only things moving is those ears, like little radars. All directions. Chanel, is it true that rhinos are more at risk during the full moon? The full moon is certainly a period of intense action, and it does provide, depending on where it is, it does provide more light, and due to that, I tend to find that it's easier for people entering protected areas illegally to actually see without using torches and other devices that might get them caught easily. So yes, indeed, it's quite a time to be vigilant. Rhinos also tend to be active quite a bit during the night time and over full moon periods, so it would be easier to find them, and due to that, usually security is heightened over those periods. And this is quite interesting. It does look like a rhino cow, the one that's moved towards the big one, and I can hear a bit of breathing there, so I'm assuming what she was doing is just trying to put herself between this young one and that animal that's moved past. The one moving past, I'm dead sure is very likely a male rhino. So what we witnessed there was a mother being a little bit protective, just trying to be proactive. But you can see the little one's curious. He's moving off in the direction of that other rhino. Mother's having a good scratch. Amazing to see the whole tree shake like that. And it looks like there's a layer of grass just up on the ridge there where they're standing. I saw that little one also slow down to feed. Making sure she's getting a good scratch. I saw both of them and their faces looked a little bit paler, and you can see on her shoulder, her left shoulder facing us, and along the side it looks like it's these paler scratch marks, and that's usually an indication of them having rubbed up against the bark of a tree like this or up against a rock. can see she's now, I think the little one's moved too far for her liking. So leaving the scratching post to follow him. That was unbelievable. What a bit of interaction we got to see there. Anna May, how are breeding programs for endangered animals like rhinos, wild dogs, and cheetah run? Well, it depends. It depends on what type of breeding program it is. Excuse me. I know nowadays, like, these programs are generally, they try to facilitate a natural as possible process, meaning that they would pair up male and female in either large, well-maintained and well-supplied enclosures, or bomas as they're effectively known. Often when animals are moved from one area to a next area, they moved to spread the genes and to maintain the integrity of the genes in different areas, to get different genes in different areas. And that way, obviously, they manage and prevent inbreeding, because inbreeding brings a whole bunch of problems with it, and eventually the gene pool becomes so shallow. So therefore, to facilitate the natural processes which would have happened years ago when there were no fences and animals could roam everywhere, the animals from far away would move across very large distances and then meet up with a mate from another area. So nowadays, a lot of this is facilitated through the movement of certain high priority species or animals from one area to the next. And then when they move into the new area, they're often kept within a enclosure where it just gives them a bit of time to get used to that area and to be able to settle in. But it looks like our rhinos have moved off now, so I think we're gonna head over to Naledi. Where we have 2 elephants, 3 elephants. I don't even see the little one there. This is a classical example of the resourcefulness of an elephant. And you can see they're standing right next to the water there, the dam or the pan, but they're drinking from the built well. I mean, that makes sense. I would do the same. I'd rather drink from the water where the animals can't get in. It looks like quite a high wall. Compare it to the size of that little elephant and the big one. So, you know, there might be some mud and debris and things coming off animals, and elephants in particular get into the water. It's not nearly as dirty as the water in the little pan. Looks like there's only these 3 around. They look very relaxed. You can see that brief moment's pause there, just to let the little one move in between them, come and have its drink. Doesn't seem like there's any other pressure from other, mainly elephants, nearby. There's probably a mother and her two offspring just moving at a little bit of a distance from the rest of the herd. I'm sure they're part of a herd, and I'm sure the herd is within the vicinity. See the older sibling patiently waiting, resting at back leg. For a moment there I thought the little one might have moved in to try and get a bit of milk from the mother, but it looks like it's just aiming for a scratch. One of the many roles of the mother elephant, acting as a scratch post to her young. What I always find amazing in a situation like this where we have the three related elephants, I'm saying related, I'm taking a guess here, but I think from my experience and the situation, I could safe to say or to assume that these three elephants are related. The size difference between the two younger ones looks sufficient enough for the older one to be a sibling of that younger one. But what this situation points out is how important that little one is, and the attention and care given to a little one like that. It's got its needs just like the adults, but it's important to make sure that it gets water, shade. The older one's already a little bit more respectful, kind of look like it's already, and it looks like a female. So she's probably already kind of assumed her role within the group, certainly within this little family. These young elephant calves. The maternal instinct kicks in as early as from 4 years old. As soon as the next sibling's born. Starting to learn the vitals of becoming an excellent, all-knowing elephant mother, ensuring the success of the herd, Grant DMV. What has more influence on an elephant's behavior, nature or nurture? That's a very good question. I don't think I'll be able to answer you straight up. Say, for me, with these things, especially in a wild situation, it will always have a lot of depending factors. They do get nurtured quite a bit. They're one of the few high-class mammals that's considered to have cultures, and due to that they actually, they do have a lot of behavior that's nurtured from a young age, that they learn through observing and spending time with the older animals, which in turn learned that from their mothers. So nurturing certainly plays a huge role in elephant society's behavior and the behavior of individual elephants. they learn from a young age is how they'll apply that knowledge one day. But then nature also plays a big role. Depends on the conditions. I'm pretty sure that the upbringing and the behaviors learned for a young elephant growing up during a prolonged period of drought versus an elephant growing up during a prolonged wet or wetter cycle would be a little bit different. So I think they certainly play in various complex ways and shape each other, undoubtedly. Because of that, I think it's quite difficult to pin it down to one, but I do know that their behavior, most of their behavior is learned from a young age. Like what we're seeing here, you're going to see a learning curve right here. The little one's still feeding on some green leaves. All the older ones have decided it's time to go. You can see they're stopping there. I can see the trunk's bent backwards. So it's just paying attention, making sure that it's not moving too far away from the little one. Obviously, this little one's too busy to notice that the adults have moved off. Oh, and there's another elephant coming in. My guess, just from its behavior, would be that it might be a young bull. And we're witnessing a greeting ceremony. These elephants obviously know each other. They might even be related. Now the younger ones also greeting that elephant. Let's see, this is quite an interesting little interaction. But while we watch to see what these elephants doing, I just want to remind our viewers of Ultimate Kenya with James Henry, which will take place in May next year, 2025. It'll be a group size of 6, but there's only 4 spots left currently. And some of the talking points of this trip would be Amboseli and the Masai Mara, both incredible locations in Kenya. Very, very well-known wildlife locations. From Amboseli, of course, you can see Mount Kilimanjaro with large, large elephant herds. And that's where you get the classical photos of the elephants with Mount Kilimanjaro in the background. And then, of course, the Masai Mara, which is arguably the best safari in Africa. And this time in May is also the time where there's a little bit less people than normal, so quite a good time to travel for some very, very unique and personal experiences. Of course, with James making it more fun and informative. So certainly something not to miss out on. That was looked like quite a peaceful meeting there. I'm sure these elephants do know each other. And what I find fascinating here is, see, there's quite a lot of different trees here, some with green leaves around the edge of the water, and then of course there's quite a few of the just drab, grey-looking trees. I saw that elephant stopping there, feeding for a little bit. Now, what I always find fascinating, and just to get back to this nature versus nurture, this is how nature plays in. So for us to learn, for us as humans to learn all the different names, and especially scientific names of trees and species of plants in an area, take many, many years, and it's quite tricky, and they often just look the same. So that little elephant there, that little elephant clearly having some help from not just its mother, but also other elephants, will have to learn, by the time it's 2 years old, it will have to learn quite a decent amount of plants, of what is edible and what is not. And of course, whatever particular natural space that the elephant would find itself in this case in the South African lowveld, that would determine what those plants are and the variety. I can imagine in certain extremely productive landscapes, the amount of species must be astronomical. Now, this time of the year it's also quite dry, and elephants tend to eat quite a bit of grass during the wet season, so with all the various species of grass, not even to tuck into that, but then also the fact that it needs to switch from that to different species in dry season. And there we've got quite a clear indication of just how resourceful these elephants can be by using that very essential tool, their trunk, to grab the top branches, the green leaves, plant material that other animals couldn't have reached. That's amazing, just picking off the individual leaves. And stripping it, carefully using the tip of the trunk, kind of like a two little fingers or digits. Very, very carefully and dexterously picking individual leaves and twigs. And then of course, at that level, the elephant can see down its trunk. It can see all the way down to the tip of the trunk while it's feeding down there. You can see it's using its foot to aid it. Then of course, once it takes the food up to the mouth, that's where it's got a blind spot. And to aid the elephant in that task, it's got these very long hair-like structures all over the mouth, the tip of the mouth, base of the trunk, around the lips. And those are all very, very sensitive to pressure, with nerve endings running throughout them, and they of course can help aid the elephant to put the food right at the back of the mouth, in between, under the molars. Chelsea, how come they don't take the elephant tusks off like they do with the rhino horns? That's a good question. Elephants, to take their tusks off, it is a little bit different from the rhino. First of all, it's not the same type of appendage. A tusk for an elephant is it's a tooth. It's actually a prolonged incisor. So it's an aid in eating, where the rhino horn is mainly for, well, it's also an aid, I guess, and a tool, but also for defense. But the rhino horn is made from keratin, so it kind of grows out of the skin or from a cuticle, essentially, where the elephant tusk grows from the jaw. So not only would it hurt, they take it out, but one of the other main reasons is it depends on the area. I think there's so many elephants around. Elephants are so clever that to be able to dart and immobilize a whole herd of elephants just to take off their tusks, that would be quite an expensive, very, very difficult undertaking with a lot of potential things that can go wrong. The other thing is also, it depends, area dependent. Certain areas, especially in South Africa, being a stronghold for the rhinoceros, we find that the demand for elephant ivory is not that high, like you might find, for instance, in East Africa, where we have a lot less rhino and more elephant. And of course, the other thing is also the rhino horn is more expensive, or worth more in the black market than an elephant tusk. So that is a good question. It's a very thought-provoking question. And this is quite interesting to see this elephant coming afterwards to come and see what the other one did. And once again, it speaks to that learned behavior. Just following through, seeing maybe there's something left. Why did that elephant go after that? Having said that, in that statement, there's also an acknowledgement of the fact that they find value in the actions of other elephants. I was wondering when he was going to check out the rest of the tree. And so he's just kind of feeling along the branches there. No, as he's using his trunk to search the ground for something else that's tasty. I'm pretty sure he's going to head off in the direction of the other elephant. So let's head over to Tao. And here we have some crocodiles there. And some coots, red-knobbed coots. Red-knobbed coots and two crocodiles. Two crocodiles, one hiding its head in the green vegetation. The other one using the other croc's tail to rest its head, and then these two coots checking them out very suspiciously. What an interesting scene. Clearly these two crocodiles are quite comfortable with each other. If they're doing that, well, maybe I spoke too soon. But still, they've got this entire pond. Amazing creatures, the crocodile. Two ancient creatures, older than the dinosaurs. The other one's moving deeper into that green grass. Maybe it was getting a little bit hot. There we go, there's the head's coming out. So, from what I understand and what I would take from this is, normally with male crocodiles, even younger males, there's quite a strict hierarchy going on. And then of course, to an extent with the females as well. These two certainly are quite comfortable with each other. The male crocs will generally avoid each other. I'm not sure if there's been any recent breeding of the crocs in this particular watering hole, but it would be interesting to know. It might be male and female, who knows. With crocodiles, as in most reptiles, you can only tell upon closer examination, or if you have very, very old specimens where size might be an indication, and crocodiles, the males being the larger ones. And what would they eat? Especially here, I think most of the animals in this region coming down, they must be aware of these crocs, especially the zebra, the wildebeest, impala, the creatures that tend to have their home range around this area. They would know very, very well about these crocs. The crocs can come and go. I don't know, it might be surprising for some to hear that crocs do tend to move quite long and far distances actually to get to water. Maybe might have come from somewhere else, and once the rain season breaks, then might leave this area. See all those wildebeest there. There's a big elephant standing there at the back as well. Looks like two different groups of wildebeest. And quite the contrast. Still some green grass available on the wet patches of mud. There's some zebra in the back there. All the usual customers around the water this time of the day. Zebra and wildebeest seem to be able to handle this midday heat quite well. And there's that one. Oh, there's quite a few zebra there. See, the others were just hiding in the dip there. And then the spur-winged goose. Straightening its feathers, preening itself. There we go. And that is another crocodile. 3 crocodiles. That I would have not said. I did not expect it to be 3. I was surprised the other day to see more than 1. This one clearly keeping on its own. Joan, you're asking if these crocs will outgrow this area. And you're mentioning that they get quite large. They do get quite large. The Nile crocodile is known to be one of the large species, one of the largest. Arguably, the only largest species might be the saltwater crocodile on in northern Australia and in some of the island areas north of Australia. But they could definitely outgrow this area. It depends on the available water, I'd say. Depends on what other water sources are available. Crocs are incredibly resourceful. In the past, in some regions, I know like in the northern Kruger Park, it's been witnessed where during severe droughts, even the large crocs, they tend to burrow into banks of rivers, into the cooler moisture laden soils, and then what they do is they actually kind of hide in there and they go almost into a state of estivation, which is like a state where they kind of, it's not full hibernation, but they slow their metabolism even more so than they are at this current stage, this time of the year when it is a little bit cooler and if there's not a lot of food around, and they tend to slow their metabolism. It's quite slow in general. And let's see if there are any changes in their behavior now that this group of wildebeest is coming down. I think these crocodiles, they're a decent size already, but from this stage forward their growth will be slow. It'll never stop, and as they grow older they still keep growing in size, not necessarily length, but I think it'll be quite ambitious for these 3 crocs to go after one of these wildebeest, maybe a younger one. But yeah, I think they've got a number of years left before they'll outgrow this area. And there's an elephant coming down. Another elephant way in the back. And whatever the other elephants found there has been preoccupied, and it's kept them there for quite a long time. What's quite striking is the difference in color of those two elephants. See, the one in front has probably been to the water at some point today, and that's why he's got the lighter grey cover, the dried mud on his skin, and the lighter hue. You can see some of the wildebeest in the other groups are just checking this group out, taking note of the fact that they're moving down to the water. Very observant animals and groups, the social animals, they're very observant of the behaviors of others, constantly checking in the hopes of avoiding danger or seeing what might happen, and if there is any changes in the environment that might affect them. And this elephant initially looked like he might walk past, but now it's turned around, so let's see what's going to happen here. The other one's got his ears out, almost telling the other one just to keep its distance, kind of giving it a signal to approach a little bit slower. Seems like a peaceful greeting nonetheless. Here we go. Trunks wrapped. Extending it towards each other's mouths. Sign of trust and reassurance. Just reassuring the other elephant. Not going to give it any problems. And then the ever-vigilant wildebeest here in the foreground. Making sure that one of those three crocodiles are not going after. One of the wildebeest has just gone to the water's edge. It's amazing to see this, almost like each group has their own drinking slot. So, I hear there's an elephant at Aldonio, so let's head over there and see what that elephant's up to there. Single elephant pool. The elephant and its birds friends around the water. You can see there's a fierce and very active bathing session going on there in the side of the little pan by the birds. These 3 warthogs approaching. But what a contrast in landscapes. It's amazing to see all this green vegetation in the background. Lots of grass cover still. And a dramatic African sky, blue sky with the clouds. Looks like where that elephant was standing, something was wallowing as well. And the other elephants came in earlier. The thing that strikes me always about the elephants here at Old Donyo is the size of their tusks. It's just something I can't get enough of. It's such a difference from most of the elephants you see on the South African side. Gives these animals an incredible character and presence. A long period of slurping to get water up. It's strange, he waited quite a bit before squirting it into his mouth. Maybe that's why I moved away from the other side, is to get away from all that mud. A majestic creature. That is a massive amount of water. Gets slurped up and sprayed away at the back of its mouth. Now, it's said that some elephants can keep up to about or more than 10 liters, 15 liters of water up like that. Now we have a very thirsty giraffe that's approached. 2. Let's see, I think the elephant seems very calm. He acknowledged the giraffe, just tilt of the head that side, but very happy to share this water. can see the other giraffe jumping the gun a bit there with its tongue coming out. The largest and the tallest animal. Actually, I haven't noticed this. I only noticed now that it's a female and a younger male giraffe. The fact that he's moved around, go and investigate, drew my attention. Maybe that's why she was a little bit more hesitant to drink. Male giraffe just being a male giraffe. It's interesting to see the amount of drinking that happens. The elephant's still going. Being such a large animal, it's got a huge water requirement. And giraffes can go for quite a while without drinking. But it's interesting, it looks green and lush in the background, but in these parts of Africa where it's close to the equator, it's very, very hot, very humid, which can be quite exhaustive. Animals tend to lose quite a bit of moisture. What a sight. 3 giraffes drinking in unison. That might be a record for me. It looks like maybe the awkwardness of the situation deterred the other 2. Spasiankov, yes, that was definitely some synchronized drinking there. Brief. It's interesting to see every little quick movement, every jolt, even the birds flying up and down. And there's a very large amount of oxpeckers on these giraffes. I can't even see how many, but there's quite a few. Every time the birds fly up, give the giraffe a spook, and if one gets spooked, the others get spooked. Nervous drinkers. But I think also the fact that there's one young male giraffe, it's just being a male giraffe, also being a little bit of a pest to the females. But he's clearly got that one female in his sight, so you can obviously detect. There we go, there we see the phlegm and grimace there at the back. an action whereby pulling up the lips, which most mammals perform, they actually open a small little opening up on the palate and then creates a vacuum and a suction. And small minute chemical particles travel up to the scent organ, and from there that male giraffe will be able to determine whether or what the reproductive state of that female might be. But now we've got an oryx that's joined in here. Justin from the UK, you asking if giraffes get a lot of ticks on the upper part of their bodies because they're so tall. They do, yes they do. They do to an extent. They can scratch and itch, so I guess a severe tick bite, or if there's a lot of ticks in one area and it itches a lot, they can scratch it off a little bit. But they have ways of rubbing and trying to manage their tick load underneath their bodies. Often they've got incredibly thick skin, and the skin on the back is actually regarded as some of the thickest animal hide there is. So they often, you'll see them walking across small thorn trees, and that's done to try and scrape off whatever parasites sit underneath. But the part on top, that's quite oh, and there we have a jackal. That's a first for me here, Daldonio. That's amazing. I can see the others. Well, the giraffe's checking them out, but the elephant and the oryx isn't bothered at all. But yeah, Justin, to get back to your question, so giraffes, the backs, they do sometimes scratch themselves, their necks up against trees and so forth, but that's mostly maintained by the large amount of oxpeckers that they can carry. And the oxpeckers, these oxpeckers do quite a good job. They can remove quite a bit of ticks, and especially if there's that many, they can remove massive amounts of them. So they do a really good job at keeping their coats clean. Dion, you asking why giraffes are camouflaged like dried mud cracks. And that's a good description, I'd say. It does vary a little bit across the different giraffe species, but they are very well camouflaged. And even though they do serve some function within regulating their body temperature, they play a very large role in camouflage. And you'll be surprised, I've often found that one might actually walk straight up to a giraffe before you actually even notice that it's standing there, even though it's one of the tallest things around. But the darker patches and the lighter patches, the contrast between the two kind of breaks up the outline of the animal at a distance. And then of course the neutral colors that fit within the landscape. But as to why it looks exactly like that, that's a good question. And the jackal's making a brief cameo again. Let's have a look. It looks like it's drinking from one of the smaller puddles off to the side. Looks a little bit jittery, quite nervous. Black-backed jackal. Very vigilant animal. Always are. Extremely vigilant. Being one of the smallest carnivores in the area, certainly needs to be on the lookout. This is quite an exciting visitor to the watering hole this afternoon. I wonder why I decided against drinking from the water there. Maybe it's all that mud we can see there. Didn't want to get his paws too dirty. And there is perfectly good water to drink on the side. Almost looks like he had something to eat. Maybe that's why he's come to drink. Maybe he's a little bit thirsty. Might have scavenged a helping somewhere. It's interesting to see that giraffe's not moving at all. Maybe he's just watching this jackal. Giraffes tend to do that. They tend to, sometimes you just see them stare into the distance. Or stare into the grass nearby. They've got such an acute sense of sight. They pick up on anything, and they'll often stand and watch even smaller predators like the jackal. Oh, I think we lost old Donya there, so we are back at Tembe. And we've got a beautiful, warm, sunny day here in northern KwaZulu-Natal. And a few elephants. You can see there's a bit of a breeze going there. Now what I find interesting about animal behavior, and especially going on safari, is one of the biggest factors that people, in my opinion, don't always take into account too much. I know when the decision gets made to go on safari, it's often time of the year, the season is a big thing, and lots of choices get made in terms of what would be the best time to see the target species. And of course, the dry season, having a lot of trees lose their leaves, making animals a little bit more visible, more action around the watering holes. but still on a smaller scale, the weather certainly plays a big role in the type of sightings that one might see. And even with the elephant, to find when it's a little bit more overcast, you often see way more action actually. And it's hot, but not too hot. I think this breeze is cooling down these elephants quite a bit. You just see them coming down for a casual drink and then moving on. And this elephant's just resting his trunk on his tusk. Considering his next sip of water. Probably just checking what the other two's up to. It's quite a distance for that elephant to go to a very particular spot to drink. Just testing the water there, probably cleaning off whatever it was feeding on the tip of its trunk as well. Very, very relaxed scene here at Tembe. So while we are watching these elephants having a drink, I just want to also remind our viewers of another exciting adventure, which would be Gorillas and Safari with James Henry in Rwanda and Kenya next year, 2025, in September. The group size is also 6. And some of the talking points will be 2 of Africa's most iconic creatures in the same trip. What an amazing chance to get to see gorillas and go on safari. And not just any safari, the migration in Kenya. What a spectacle. One of the big attractions in safari. And then to top it off with a hot air balloon experience, which is included in Kenya. And that way you can get to experience migration from a different viewpoint, from up in the air. Sounds like an extremely exciting adventure, and certainly a bucket list opportunity. Sandy Franklin, I agree. I think it's a beautiful, beautiful scene here. You can see that blue sky reflecting in the water, the greenery all around. There's still even some green patches of grass. The elephant's dust bowls scattered further away. And then we have that serenade of the emerald spotted wood doves calling in the back. This elephant is standing still for quite a long time. It's doing acting quite strangely, actually. I'm assuming he's had a good feed before he came down to the water. Maybe he's just, maybe he's also just enjoying the atmosphere. While hydrating. Rich, are the tuskers followed by anti-poaching rangers in South Africa? Not in South Africa, really. South Africa, elephant poaching is not such a big issue yet in South Africa. Generally, the protection in South Africa tends to be quite good, but because there are other species that's targeted more so currently in this region, we haven't resorted to extreme measures like that yet, at least not to my knowledge, to be honest. I am not 100% sure. There might be areas. I remember reading the other day that Tembe Elephant Park actually has quite a considerable amount of the elephants with the larger tusks in South Africa. And elephants with larger tusks in South Africa are quite well known, well, generally in any region that they found, so they are monitored quite carefully, not just by tourism but also by the conservation teams in different areas. There's always a watchful eye on them, just to make sure that they are watched. I know in the past some of the larger tuskers known throughout the Kruger Park region back in the day, there were one or two that were attempted to be poached and they actually recovered their tusks. Cartier, you're asking if the vegetation in the water is more nutritious. Well, it depends. It depends on what it is. There are certain species that actually, they specialize on aquatic vegetation. and they mainly eat that. Certain bird species especially exposed to an extent, in some areas elephants, but not necessarily. It depends on the species. It depends on both the animal species and the plant species. I guess in some regards the aquatic vegetation might be a little bit easier to digest due to its high moisture content, but then it's got very fibrous cell walls in the plant material. I'm seeing the reeds there, for instance. I know the elephants often eat the reeds for the roughage to help and aid in digestion. Excuse me. And when they do so, you often see it towards the end of the dry season. You can start to see the reeds in the water getting cropped down more or less to a similar level, as we can see with these reeds here. And then we have some Egyptian geese. Birds that go after some of the aquatic species. They eat a lot of grass as well, and a lot of these small little reeds that grow on the edge of the water and in certain marshy areas. They have a reed-like plant, looks like small little reeds, and they are quite tough to digest. I don't know what their nutritional values are at or like. And there we've got what looks like an African jacana. What an amazing scene here at Tembe, and I think while these birds are busy moving through the wet vegetation there, we're gonna head over to Tau for the last few minutes of the show to see what the animals around the watering holes up to there. Aha! And we've got a herd of elephants. With a very confused little one at the back there. It looks like they're just taking a mud bath. See, that elephant cow has plastered herself with mud in all the vital areas. No, I think she's going to give her little ones a space. Let's see. You can see a reddish hue on the smallest one, on the forehead and the shoulders. So certainly had some attempt earlier today to cover himself from the sun's harsh rays. There we go. The mud cake right on the head. Maybe not so effective yet. I think this mud might be a little bit hard. You can see that slightly older one is rubbing it on very patchily. too much effort, so let's move on. It's quite interesting to watch, actually. So there's definitely a point where the mud becomes a little bit too dry to use properly. And let's see, I thought I saw some mud on the ear of this little one, and I think it might be maybe from rubbing up against one the others, or maybe the mom. No, I'm mistaken. I think it was just the shadow that was cast. Spencer, it's been my absolute pleasure. I certainly enjoyed this show quite a lot. We had a lot of exciting stuff happening this afternoon. Lots of elephants. Elephants are always good to catch up with. Always busy. Also being such intelligent animals, they've got such an amazing and exciting way of interacting with the environment. Always give us a glimpse into their fascinating world. Provides us with a little bit more experience of what they get up to. Yeah, I certainly enjoyed the show this afternoon. I think there was a lot happening. I think my highlight this afternoon this far was certainly the jackal pitching up at Aldonio. That was a little bit unexpected. Maybe the third crocodile. I'm happy to know there's 3. Elephants. It's quite interesting to watch. You just kind of push that young elephant out of the way. Like, you're in my way. Move aside. Very casual movement. Looks like these elephants might be going down to drink or use the wetter mud. But yes, what an exciting afternoon. Thank you to all our viewers for joining us, from all of us here at Wild Earth. And yeah, we can't wait. Please join us tomorrow afternoon to see what we can experience around the water then.
Good afternoon from Djuma Private Game Reserve. My name is Liam Burrow, and this is On Safari.